for William Laubach Newt, Jr. The junior means I am the son of the Dr. Newt who was in charge of the Talas Clinic for a good many years. But I first saw Talas even before that, sometime in the late 1920s, when we were stationed in Adana. Paul Nilsson, who then headed the school in Tarsus, wanted to make a trip up to Talas and asked if I wanted to go along. I did. It was the dead of winter. It was cold, and that's what I remember of that trip. So that's when I first saw Talas. However, in the Depression was closing things down in the mission lost about half the mission at least in the early 1930s. And that's how the Adana Hospital was closed. My father was briefly in Mardin, and the government threw him out of there. And it was about the early 1930s that William Newt Sr., my dad, was posted to the Talas Clinic. At that time, the hospital was closed, too. It was a question whether a missionary doctor could operate without a hospital. The Adana Hospital was gone, the Depression. The Talas Hospital was closed because of the Depression. And it was a question of whether a missionary doctor could operate, just operating a clinic, without a hospital fallback. And that's when Dodd left the mission. He was a surgeon. He didn't think he could do it. He did come back later to fill some furloughs. So that was the experiment that was being carried on to see if you could run a clinic. And Hawes, who had had the hospital in Adana, carried on the Adana clinic in the old hospital building. A really weird program he had. And that's what I inherited later. But that's jumping ahead. When was I in Talas again? I came home for the year between school and college in 33, 34. And that was, I guess, the only time I actually spent a year in Talas. I remember we lived in a building, if you were standing on the street in front of the clinic, behind the clinic and up to the right was a building, maybe it was called, not the Dodd House, but anyhow, it was across the campus from the Dodd House. That's where I and my, that's where I remember, no, that year I lived with my parents, of course, I wasn't married yet. No, I spent the year that year helping Dad. The hospital must have been still going because I learned basic laboratory techniques long before I went to college, doing blood work and urinalyses for my dad. How memory hazes. And I also was tutoring my younger brother, Cy. I taught him English composition, straightened out his language a bit. I taught him math. We both loved math. And I taught him Latin, neither of us liked. And I taught him for dessert. We promised ourselves for dessert. We studied physics together. And that was fun. And I still think I've got some papers with the stain of a magpie's droppings on it because Cy had a pet magpie that was given the run of the house, although not entirely housebroken. What else? Well, here's a tale. This was still there. When by that time I was posted, I think, in Adana. And my father was about to go at the end of the clinic out to the village of Sakalchatan. And he was going to go as usual on horseback. But Ed Saylor was going to drive the Jeep to take Paul Sterling back to his digs. He was doing anthropological work in Sakalchatan. And, hey, Bill, hey, Dr. Newt, why don't you go in the Jeep with us? Okay. But then my father found that the Jeep was going to be crowded because Margaret Sterling was going to go along too. And one of the earliest lessons my dad taught me when I was so high, it was a very strong part of his character, was a respect and consideration for women. I think the only time he ever beat me was for some transgression in that regard, which I've long since forgotten, but I must have done something which I shouldn't have done vis-a-vis some woman. I certainly didn't strike her, but whatever it was. But this was a strong part of Dad's character, that he respected women, he had a good attitude toward my mother. So when he found that Margaret was going to be there, the gallant Dr. Newt elected to ride on the hood of the Jeep. So Ed Saylor was driving the Jeep, and he started up a slight incline. It was a bit tilted a bit, and he flipped my dad off that Jeep like a pancake out of a frying pan. And Dad was knocked out. Ed thought he'd killed him. But when he came to, they picked him up, and it was easier to go on to Secaucetown with it, unload all the luggage, and they had more room in the back of the Jeep. So they clunked down to Secaucetown and put Dad in the back of the Jeep. But he didn't go straight home. He had a patient to visit in another village around there. The village, the name I've forgotten, and when he got there, it was just a woman who was having hysterics. So we got home. Now, I should say that a couple of days before that, Mother had been about to, she was about to mount the horse for some reason. At any rate, she stumbled and fell, and there was a water pipe that stuck out of the wall in the back of the clinic, probably still there. And she came down right there across her face, and she heard the bones in her nose crack. And the consequence of this contretemps was that she had two great big shiners. So Dad comes crawling home from this adventure, and is crawling up those stone steps, and Mother leans over the bank, "Labach, what have you been doing now?" Well, that's what he'd been doing. So the next morning he got up and he ran a full day in clinic. And then he went into Kaiser and got himself x-rayed and found he had a broken collarbone and a broken foot. So he came home with his arm in an airplane splint and looking kind of grim. I've got a snapshot of him somewhere. And I don't know quite how the geography worked out, but I was persuaded to take care of his clinic for about a week until he was operated again. So that was my dad. He was a man. But he also used to like to smoke a pipe, just like his son. This was very off and on with him. His wife, of course, didn't entirely approve of pipe smoking, but he did smoke a pipe. But there was an occasion when he was smoking his pipe as he took off down the road. He used to say that he'd be, after a long day in the clinic, he'd start at 7 in the morning. He'd be pretty tired. But once he got a leg over a horse, he felt good again. So he galloped off down the road and stuck his pipe in his tweed jacket when it was still lit, and he burned a hole in the jacket. It made him so mad at himself that he swore off smoking for a year. And he used to, as I say, travel all over the place. He traveled as far as 8 hours away from the clinic to make these house calls, and sometimes he slept in a cave, which is where his patients were sleeping, and go back the next morning and start clinic. But what was I going to say? Oh, yes. And I remember his riding through the village and the kids were running after him, shouting, "Yaman, doctor!" And you know what? Years later, when I was an officer of the New York City Health Department, I bicycled all over Manhattan. And the kids would run after him. "Oh, look at the old man riding a bicycle." And it was just like my dad.
That's good.
So those are some reminiscences of Talas and of Bill Newt. Senior and junior, and that's about it. But all I can think of at the moment. All right, you see here a picture of my dad, Dr. William Newt, taken in the States, not very long, I think, before he died. In other words, probably in the 1960s or late 60s, early 70s was when he was visiting us. And I took this picture, unfortunately, slightly out of focus, but it very much shows the sort of guy he was. He was a man, well, I'll go to my mother. My mother was born in Marash in 1881, the daughter of missionary parents. And so she was a native born, she spoke Turkish like a native because a native is what she was. And that was very useful. I won't go into all the details, but she went to the States for some education and married a fellow student, Daniel Minor Rogers, and they came back to Turkey to teach in Tarsus College, of which Dr. Christie, my grandfather, was the head. They came to Tarsus, came home as far as she was concerned. And that was in the fall of 1908, And in February of '09, my half-brother was born. And a few weeks after that, Rogers was up in Adana when the massacre of 1909 broke out. And a sniper's bullet, he was going across the flat roofs to help some house that was on fire, I believe. And a sniper's bullet got him. And for 2 weeks, there were 2 women in Tarsus College, and they knew that one of them was a widow. They didn't know which one. It was my mother, of course, and he's buried in the campus of Tarsus College. A large gravestone there in his memory. So anyway, it was the widow Rogers who greeted the greenhorn freshman, greenhorn just out of Yale in 1914 when my dad arrived to teach at Tarsus. And she came down to breakfast, and he said, "Good morning, Mary Sunshine." And she said to herself, "Isn't he fresh?" But the following spring, he was in Mercine, of course by horse in those days, and she found herself spending time up on the top of the tall Strickland building, the tallest building in Tarsus, looking down the road to Mercine. And the story is, I guess, this may be apocryphal, but when she came downstairs when he got home, told him they were going to be married. That may not be true, but they were married that spring. In other words, the youngster from Yale did some fast work on his boss's daughter. So, of course, the war was on, and there were adventures there, but she came to the States carrying with my older brother. And that's why instead of being born in Turkey, as I should have been, I'm a born New Yorker. Because she didn't want to raise her little boy with blood in the streets. All right. So Dad followed later and went through medical school and medical training and all that, and returned to Turkey in 1924 to start his career as a medical worker in Turkey. First in Adana, then he had a year which he did not enjoy, being the head of Tarsus College, and then back to Adana, and finally posted to Mardin. Well, Mardin was Yasak, and he was thrown out after a month. And it was about then that he was posted to Talas. But I was going to try to remember things about Mother. Mother was great for raising chickens. And there's a photograph of her with an owl. The owl was raiding her chickens, and how she managed to kill the owl, I'm not sure, but she's shown there with her arms outspread and holding the owl, and the owl had dug his claws into her arm, and people protested to her, and she said, "Well, he was after my chickens," which she was bound to protect. She never, of course, she rode horses since she was a child. She must have been a tomboy, a Victorian tomboy, but a tomboy. And I think she never lost her saddle, but she did lose her horse once because the girth gave loose. And as a matter of fact, I think she was stooped over to tighten her horse's girth when the horse moved his feet, and she tripped, and that's when she came down and smashed her nose, as I described before. So she was an experienced horsewoman. My brother once remarked that he and I were born in the 20th century but raised in the 19th, because both of them, of course, were really Victorians in their outlook and their attitude. What else about Mother? She had a sort of characteristically chuckling, chuckle when she laughed. Too much of a lady to open her mouth and guffaw, but she would chuckle merrily. And that's something my father would make her do, because he was a great funster, a great tease, and a great joker. I don't remember my mother. Well, she could pull jokes. She was a linguist. She knew Turkish, she knew French, taken for a French woman. She knew German. But I guess that's the limit of her language. She must have had some Latin and Greek somewhere along the line, but I don't remember any use of them. She was a much better linguist than my father. My father's Turkish his pronunciation was always that of a foreigner. Yes. My early days with them were in Adana, of course. And I've already spoken of what little time I spent in Talas.
Well,
oh yes, I remember. she was so good at Turkish that Dad conceived the idea that it would save him time if somebody else would wade through the business of extracting a history from the patient. Now, trying to get a history out of a patient takes patience because they want to tell it their way, and you want to hear what's relevant. And that's something I never learned as a doctor. So anyhow, Mother would take the histories, and that was perfect because she spoke the language. She spoke their language literally, not just in terms of vocabulary. She knew how they lived. She knew what they were like. So she would take the histories. And who's that man that comes in down here? Is that your husband? There was some piece of dialogue of that sort. And I forget anyhow. But that was a great help to Dad, that she would take the histories, and I used the same system with my wife later, although my wife's Turkish was something, she was a great Agatha Christie fan, my wife, and she described her Turkish as a blunt instrument, and it was. So, what next?
But tell us about several things. Your mother grew up in Marash.
She was a child of Marash.
But who were her parents, and how long had they been in Turkey, and what were they doing?
Grandfather Christie fought all through the Civil War. Lied about his age to get in, I believe, and he was very proud of his military history. He had 2 bookmarks for his books, and I have samples of both. He had a bookmark for most of his library that celebrated his name, Christie, and may the name be like the life in Latin. But he had a separate bookmark for his military library, which must have been extensive, and they listed all his battles, including Shiloh and the march through Georgia. He was with that terrible march through Georgia of Sherman. Then he went to theological school and went out to...
Where?
At Beloit. He was a graduate of Beloit. Graduate BA at Beloit when he went to Andover, theological school. And by that time, he'd married Carmelite Brewer, a New England gal. And Thomas D. and Carmelite Christie came to Turkey in 1877. She was carrying my Uncle Emerson when they arrived in Alexandria and took caravans, camels or horses to Marash, where Emerson was born prematurely. And they were housed in a house of a missionary who had recently died of smallpox. Now, you couldn't get smallpox vaccine in Turkey in those days. So she vaccinated her family using a method that the wife of the British ambassador back in the 18th century, Lady Mary Wortley Montagu, had introduced into England. This was before the development of vaccine as we know it, with cowpox. You took the scab, a dried up scab from a smallpox patient, and poulticed it on the skin of the person. So my mother's mother never imagined any daughter of hers would be wearing short sleeves, so Mother carried to her grave a huge smallpox scar here on her forearm. Emerson lived to a ripe old age. He didn't get the smallpox. So Grandpa was posted from Marash in the early 1890s to be the first effective head of what was then St. Paul's Institute, and now, of course, known as Tarsus American Collegi. So that part of my childhood was in Adana, and part of it was in Tarsus. It was in Tarsus under the old mulberry tree in the garden that Dad and Mother were married in the spring of 1915. Now, is that, I guess that answers your question of where did Mother come from? She was...
what were they doing in Marash for those 18 years or so?
Grandfather was a clergyman. He was ordained. And I don't really know. I think he was probably doing a missionary work among the Armenians. And whether there was a school there at that time, I really can't tell you. But as I say, they transferred him to Tarsus when St. Paul's Institute was founded. And that was basically his career until his retirement in 1921 or so. Grandma Christie was quite a character in her own right. All during the war years, she never walked anywhere, she ran. She kept a little voluminous diary, which I have transcribed in the other room. She ran a partly clandestine refugee operation for the people who were having all the hard time during the war with deportations and so on, and kept up a voluminous correspondence, and ran Tarsus College until the war required it to be closed. There was a battle in Mesopotamia at Kutalamata. At Kutalamata, the expeditionary force, the British Anzacs, British Australian expeditionary force coming up the Mesopotamian Valley, encountered the Turkish army at Kutalamata and was defeated. And there was a whole lot of British prisoners who were taken, and many of these were housed in the grounds of the college, which by that time was closed, and so forth. And my father helped take care of them. That was before he had a medical degree, of course, and he came down with typhus in the process of taking care of these Tommies. And he used to imitate their impenetrable Lancashire and otherwise accents. You know, a British Tommy in full flow is not very intelligible to an American, as I found myself. So that was part of it.
Well, I have a few other questions.
Yeah.
So your parents were in Tarsus, but then they came back to New York what year?
Well, mother came to New York in 16, and I was born in New York. No, she came in 15. I was born in early 16. That was it. And Dad was still in Turkey, and he had to make his way through by way of Beirut and then by train across war-torn Balkans and so on, and entered medical school in probably about 1918 or there, 1917 or 18.
So he had 2 years in Tarsus during the war, or 15 to 17?
Roughly, yes.
Yeah, okay.
He came in the fall of 14. He came in the fall of 14. The war, of course, had already started by that time, World War I. And just the precise time, I've got some memoirs of his in the other room. Some of these details have escaped my memory anyway. But yes, he was in Tarsus for a few years, and then came to this country, the United States, and took his medical degree in New York. And I remember his internship days. I used to run around New York Hospital when he was an intern, and around the laboratory.
Yeah.
Had a fondness for laboratories at that early age.
Yeah.
Which is still with me. So, as I say, they sailed for Turkey as commissioned missionaries.
What year?
In 24. We landed in Mersin on February 4th of 1924, as I recall. Came by boat in those days, of course.
Yeah.
To Beirut, and then changed from Beirut to a coastal steamer up to Mersin. And yes, SS Patria, the fatherland.
Did you settle in Tarsus or in Adana?
In Adana. We were posted to Adana at that time because there was still a hospital there. And Dad was posted to work with Cyril Hawes in the Adana hospital. But he had to wait for a license because the law said that only a Turkish citizen could practice medicine. So he was terribly frustrated. He taught in the Turkish school, he taught in the girls' school. There was a mission girls' school there. I remember he's coming home with his pay. They were just creating some new 5 beş kuruş koans, and he was paid in koans. There was a box like that, just full of koans that I remember he's coming home with. But he was a frustrated man, and they posted him to Tarsus to take a year to head the Tarsus College, which was purgatory to him. He didn't like that. But it was while he was there that somebody handed some message through the gate to the effect that he would be allowed to practice in an institution. No, he would be allowed to practice. He was grandfathered in with some of the missionary doctors who were already there, and he was added to the grandfather, although he'd come after the Treaty of Lausanne, which confined Turkish practice to Turkish citizens. So he was sort of got in the back door, but he was the last one until I came along. And he was allowed to practice, obviously, quite freely like any other doctor. As I say, he was at Aden there for a while and later posted to Talas, where most of his career was.
Which you?
Well, let's go back to Adnan now.
Yes.
What did your mother do when you were in Adana, and what did you do for school?
All right. Whether my mother had any duties as a missionary, I don't recall. She had children to bring up. She may have done some teaching over at the girls' school, but if so, I don't remember it, nor do I remember her having anything to do with the hospital, which is about a mile away from where we lived in Topakbaş'ın, the hill in the center of Adana. But her time was spent in teaching her kids. Most of my schooling, up to college, up to Andover time, was spent at home in the Calvert system. I'm not sure whether the Calvert School headquartered in Baltimore still operates, but it was, does it?
I think so.
I think so, but that was a very good system. They gave you everything down to the last pencil to teach the kid, and a daily lesson program and the textbooks, some of which I still have. And part of in later years, the daily directions were addressed not to the parent but to the child. So you buckle down and did your homework and your long division and writing your compositions and so forth, with the usual complaints of any schoolboy. But that was what she was busy with.
Sure.
But
she had this natural instinct for dealing with people, and perfectly at home in the country. She had that advantage that most missionaries never did have, of being literally at home in Turkey. And I've always felt that I had two homes.
Yeah.
Türkiye ikinci vatanım.
Yeah.
Is what I've said to many times.
Then which year did they go to Talas?
I'm not positive, but it probably would have been. Well, they were there by the time I came out in 1933. By that time, the hospital had been closed because of depression.
Adana.
Yeah, well, both hospitals, Adana and no, that isn't right either, because I remember, when was I? Goodness, memory gets so hazy. I know there was a period when I was between school and college, I guess, when the hospital must have been open. Now, since I entered, I left school in '33, the hospital must still have been going at that time, because I did lab work. He taught me how to do blood counts and urinalyses.
In Talas.
In Talas, in the Talas hospital.
33.
Yeah. In the year, must have been in the year 33, 34.
And then when did you return to be in Ankara?
Well, I went to Andover, got out in '33, and then had a year in Turkey, teaching my brother and doing lab work. And then I went to Swarthmore College and graduated in '38, and again took a year out. I needed some credits and this or that, so I took a year at the AUB in Beirut. And that was when I was living in Beirut, a young fellow named John Scott showed up. I think he'd been teaching in Turkey. I'm not quite sure where, maybe in Üsküdar. But anyway, he came down on holiday. And I don't remember there's anybody else with him, but he and I both liked sailing, and we rented a sailboat in Beirut Harbor and tried to sail around the harbor. Well, we didn't get very far because there was hardly any wind. But that was the first time I met John Scott, who later, of course, was, you all know. So I went back to medical school and went through medical school and an internship in Philadelphia. And I was advised it'd be a good idea. I thought I was going to be a general practitioner like my dad, but I was told that I'd stand a better chance of getting permission to practice if I had a specialty. Well, what am I going to specialize in? I like children. I'll specialize in pediatrics. So I managed to get a post to get pediatric training at St. Louis Children's. And we finally sailed, I and my wife and two little girls, sailed for Turkey in '48 on the same boat with Dad and Mother. Dad and Mother were on that boat, and George Helling was on that boat, some other people whose names I don't remember. George was trying to take Turkish lessons from my mother, but his mind wandered because he was very interested in a girl who was headed to teach in Izmir, Bobby, well, you name it, but anyhow, she's been Bobby Helling for half a century. Delightful guys, both of them. But mother, as you might expect, was giving Turkish lessons to the
on the boat.
To the prospective missionaries. That was before we flew to Turkey.
Yeah.
I remember I was talking to an American in Adana when I was running the clinic there and working with an engineer, and she said she'd never been on a boat. Puzzled me, how'd you get here? Well, I mean, I realized at first, but this was, we used to travel by boat.
Sure.
Much later that we took for granted we traveled by air. So there was a nurse at Talas named, I think, Barbara Bird. And Margaret Blumker, the mission secretary, was rather startled to find Barbara on her doorstep because Barbara had suddenly taken into her head to go back to the States, and it was that easy to do in those days. In a few hours by air. Well, my mind as usual wanders. I think you asked me a question I was trying to answer.
No, that's...
Well, two questions. One, I want to go way back.
Yes.
You did attend Turkish school in Adana and study Ottoman Turkish, yes?
Barely, yes. I took very briefly and temporarily in the Adana Girls' School, our school, of course. I remember sitting in the French class of Lucie Borel, and somewhere along there, I was taught Turkish, so that as a child I learned the Arabic alphabet, the Osmanlıca alphabet, which is an asset. I'm not fluent in it, and my handwriting is very much a childish scrawl, but at least I do know it, and it gives me a leg up with my studies since then. I'm just old enough to know it. Most people younger than I never learned it because, of course, the new language came in just 3 years after I came to Turkey.
Nice.
Yes, I've got some old Turkish books in the other room that I can haltingly use. I've got an 1820s Bible, for example, and I've got my grandfather's huge, thick Red House dictionary with his own marginal notes in it. So,
what do you remember about King Berger or?
Very little,
Yeah.
really. I knew him. He was a colleague in the mission. But I really don't have any vivid memories of him, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
I wish I did.
Did your grandmother Christy know Armenian as well?
That's interesting. That's very interesting. No, I don't believe grandmother did. And I know my mother didn't know Armenian. The church was their symbol of national identity. And more educated Turks, Armenians in Istanbul really had nothing but, they rather despised the clergy for their obscurantism and their corruption and so forth. The liturgy is in archaic Armenian that the ordinary man on the street couldn't read, couldn't understand. And the educated elite didn't have much use for the church, but they were Armenians and therefore they were Gregorian Christians. And that was the meaning and strength of the church for the Armenian millet. It defined the millet. It defined who you were. You're an Armenian, therefore you're a Gregorian. But of course, when the missionaries came in and introduced Protestantism, this was a disruption. The church, after the missionaries had been there about 3 decades, the patriarch finally gave them the heave-ho, excommunicated them, and that was the basis for their formation of the first Armenian Protestant church in Istanbul in 1846. But it spread to the country. There were converts to the evangelical type of Christianity, and pretty well scattered through Turkey by that time. But the fountainhead of it was Constantinople, Istanbul. So the majority student body in those days, before the Republic, was probably Armenian. I think there were Turkish boys there, but I think they were probably a minority. But so far as I know, my grandmother may have known Armenian. My grandfather was a linguist and I wouldn't put it past him to know Armenian. But the demographics are that lots of Armenians who identify themselves as Armenians, they're not Turks. I remember an American clergyman in the U.S. Air Force in Adana told me one day he'd been talking to a Turkish pastor, and I knew that was an anomaly. A Turkish pastor is an oxymoron. A pastor would have had to have been probably an Armenian, if not a Greek.
Right.
But as I was saying, notwithstanding all that, a great many Armenians didn't know Armenian.
Mm-mm.
They spoke Turkish.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a scholarly elite, for example, who might know Armenian.
Right.
When I was living in Beirut, I occupied a house where the head of the house was Professor Lutfi Levonian.
Mm.
And in the household was his wife, his mother, and his children. In Beirut, you go down the street and the store signs would be in 2 or 3 languages, French, Arabic, Armenian, and so on. Beirut was a French protectorate after World War I, so French was the dominant language in Lebanon. But this family, I think I can't remember all the languages they knew, but there was only one language that all 3 generations knew. The grandmother knew Turkish, I know. Levonian himself, as a scholar, may have known Armenian. But English was the only common language. English was the common language for grandmother, son, and grandchildren in that Armenian household in Beirut in the 1930s. So even then, English was becoming a world language.
And where were they learning that English? Beirut University or in the college? Primary
Whether
school?
that family knew English, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it was an educated family.
Mm-hmm.
Lutfi Levonian had taught in Athens, and I think at that particular time he taught in the Near East Theological Seminary, probably, in 38 to 39, that would have been.
Bill, tell a little bit about your work in Ankara,
No heavens.
because that's where I knew you.
Yes, I was posted in 48. I was posted first. I was paid by the mission board, but this was kept quiet because my good friend Ihsan Doramaji had wangled for me a position as an assistant in the Ankara Numune Hastanesi. So publicly, I was a self-supported, free intern. In fact, I was a little more than an intern. I helped set up the laboratory and I did some other things in the Ankara hospital. And I was marking time while negotiations went on for the dam to be broken, because it was still the law that medicine had to be practiced by Turkish citizens. And they finally managed to get through an agreement whereby a foreigner could operate in an institution but couldn't go out of the institution. And I think that has been the model since then for mission doctors that they practiced. In my case, I was assigned to practice to the clinic in Adana. By that time, the hospital was long since closed, and Cyril Haas had been operating this rather peculiar clinic in the hospital building. So eventually, we lived in Ankara in the way described. I was working at the Numune Hastanesi. And then we decided, well, enough of this. We went down and sort of camped in Talas for a while, and so it was in Talas that we were living. This would have been fall of 53 and beginning early 54. No, oh dear. No, more like 1950. About 1950, the word came through that I was allowed to go out. We loaded up our commune and barreled down the road past Nida and past Eskişehir and down through the physician gates in the cold of winter, and arrived in Adana in spring and began to settle into the Adana building. The old building going back to the 1890s, it was originally built. At one time, it was a silk factory, and the mulberry trees related to the silk raising were still in the garden when I was there. That's old mulberry tree. So, yes, I ran that clinic until my first furlough in 54, And by that time, Ihsan Doramaji, who was a major figure in Turkey today, he had the refusal of the prime ministership more than once. He's an international figure, and he was on the way up. He wanted to start a model pediatric hospital in Turkey. I should say that he and I had met at St. Louis Children's. And he wanted to co-opt Bill Newt for his missionary spirit, I think. And Bill Newt wasn't happy with that at all, to tell the truth. I wanted to stay where I was and get out of that. But the mission thought that was a good idea. And so when I returned to Turkey after a 2-year furlough in '56, we had 2 years because of my wife's health and so on. We were posted to Ankara for the second time under quite different auspices. It was a business of getting the Hacettepe Çocuk Hastanesi founded. So that's when Joe Ray came in. I helped Ihsan recruit Joe Ray for Turkey, and Sam Klingberg, now deceased, alas. These two young fellows were recruited for the Hacettepe Çocuk Hastanesi, which was duly got off the ground. And the following spring, no, not the following spring, in the spring of '51, just before I started out on a tour to visit health work in South Asia, on my way home for furlough, the hospital caught fire. Nobody was hurt, no serious damage was done. Well, the building was pretty well damaged. And I remember standing there in the dark, watching the fire with Ihsan and his wife Aisa. And that was on a Thursday night. And by Friday evening, he was raising money to rebuild it, which he did several stories higher. And he added a nursing school, a technical school, and the hospital, as things do, metastasized into Hacettepe Universitesi. And some years later, memory blurs, but honorary doctorates were given to what was his name? Beginning with K. I mentioned him a minute ago. And Joe Ray and I were each given, I've got an honorary PhD from Hacettepe University.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
So that was my years in Ankara. And by then, by '61, Ihsan didn't need me anymore. And I went on furlough, not expected to return, and I was assigned to Gaziantep Medical Hastanesi as one of 2 American doctors there. And from the fall of '62 until early '65, that was my post, and at that point they pulled me out of there and assigned me to the National Council of Churches. And so my career as a medical missionary ended in '65. It was mixed. I was constantly being moved around.
Yeah.
Well, then you came back to the States in 1965 and settled where?
In New York. We were in New York. Of course, Ginger, by that time, we didn't realize it until she got home, but she still had metastasis from her second breast cancer. And she died in '68. She was more troubled by her depression than by her cancer. She was badly handicapped with serious clinical depression. When she wasn't depressed, she was a very merry gal.
Yeah, she was.
She was a merry, laughing, happy woman.
Wonderful.
And very people-oriented. Very outgoing, warm, people-oriented person. She had taught in Turkey long before we ever met. In fact, we met because we had Turkey in common as a background. She was a nursing student at Hopkins, and I was a medical student. That's how we met. I remember walking down Broadway with her. Her name was Mary Rogers, and I was telling the boys in the fraternity house who I'd been out with, and for identification, the Englishman said, "Oh, you mean the ginger-haired one?" Well, here's a girl named Rogers with hair that color, so she became Ginger from there on. And I remember saying to this girl that I was out on a date, we were walking down Broadway. I said I wasn't sure I was ever going to be married. And he said, "Don't be too sure about that." It took us about 4 weeks to get engaged.
That's great.
And we were married on the day that was my parents' wedding anniversary, my grandmother's birthday, and with her birthday, and was also our wedding day, and it was a Thursday, and for years we would greet each other every week with a happy Thursday. So many things that happened on Thursday too.
Which date was that? There's
43.
43.
Yeah. We were married in Philadelphia Friends meeting, and a few months later we were admitted to the Society of Friends, Quakers.
Wonderful.
So she had a memorial service and Quaker meeting in New York, where later Betty and I were married. Same meeting in New York City.
Wonderful. Such a rich life. I wonder
It's
what
a happy life.
happy,
I've been
happy.
a lucky guy. 87 years.
It's wonderful. One place that Don and I went to just several times, but well, when we were in Tarsus, is Namrun.
Yes,
Now, do you
Namrun, do you know Namrun?
We do.
Oh, I didn't realize you would know Namrun.
Namrun is great.
Oh, yes.
What memories do you have of that house, or 2 or 3 houses?
My grandfather, one of the first things he did, I have the diary in which he makes a note of it. My grandfather's diary in the 1890s, when he was about to settle in Tarsus, and people in Tarsus, if they could, would have a yaila in the mountains, and Namrun was one such yaila. And he went up to Namrun and he bought 2 houses. And when we came to Turkey in 1924, of course, we began to use Namrun, and early, about 1925, we built a 3rd house. So the first 2 houses were typical local village houses, timber frame and filled with loose stones and mud and so forth. And one of them was called the Berberian house, probably the owner of the property from whom we bought it. And the other we called the Christie house. The Berberian house collapsed into a pile of stones some years ago. Christie house, when I was last there 5 years ago, was still there. It still had pencil graffiti, some of them in Latin, from my mother's siblings. And Newt house, as we call it, is much more solid. It's stone and cement and cedar, cedarwood timbers is a Newt house, and that has this marvelous panorama. One of the most wonderful views. If I'd known you'd notice, I'd unpacked this panorama I had that shows the whole 300-degree circuit of which you stand there.
So Newt House, there were 3 houses in a row.
Yeah.
And Newt House is the one closest to the view of the mountains.
Yes, that's
with
right.
this porch.
That's right.
The middle one was
Berberian.
okay, and then the
Christie house in the back. And originally there was a barn back there, but that long since vanished.
okay, and the 2 that your grandfather bought
Were Berberian and what we now call Christie.
Christie, and then your family built.
Newt in the 1920s.
Okay.
And that's the main house.
Yeah.
The others are
It's
just
beautiful.
It is a lovely place. We were there with my grandchildren began to petition Grandpa to take us to Turkey and show us the old scenes, parenthesis, before you get too old to do it.
When was that?
This must have been in 98. And my daughter and her 2 children and I went to Turkey. Irini had studied ballet under Madame Fenmen, and there met a classmate whose father ran the Turkish equivalent of the CIA, I think, Shebnem. I can't remember her maiden name. And Irini and Shebnem were bosom friends ever since. We stayed for a week in Istanbul with Shebi. They had, so far as I know, never any children. And then we rented a car and toured down past Izmir and Antakya and along the Cilician coast and Adana and Namrun. And then to Ankara, where we were guests of Ihsan Doramaji. But yes, we went back to Namrun together. And it was a very moving reunion. Here was my grandchildren of the 5th generation to see Namrun. I haven't counted wrong. It was Christie, Newt Junior, Newt Senior, Newt Junior, Newt Junior's children, and Newt Children's grandchildren. So yeah, it'll be
Right.
fifth generation
Yeah.
had seen that place, and it meant a great deal to them.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
Lots of memories around
Oh.
that place.
Did you often go there in summers?
Oh yes, anytime we could.
What would you do?
What did you do? Sit on the porch and admire the view.
Mm-hmm.
Hire a horse and go camping down the river. Mother was a great one for camping. She as I say, she loved to travel.
Yeah.
I used to say she was born in a saddlebag. So there's a river gorge about 2 hours away.
Mhm.
One summer it must have been the summer of what, 2027? Call it that. We were down camping on the riverbank and developed pain in the belly, and we went back to the house, which was about 3-4 hours on horseback or on foot. And my father, the young doctor, well, he got suspicious. And he went down and telephoned Istanbul, and his old fraternity brother from Yale, by the name of Lawrence Shepard, he was the son of Shippitt, guy, Weintab. Lawrence Shepard came with his nurse, Jean Honis, 2 days and a night by train to Tarsus, and then some 6-8 hours on horseback, and laid me out on a table in that same house. Mother they tacked a sheet to the ceiling so the dust wouldn't fall into the wound, and Mother stood outside with a great big mirror, bigger than this, and reflected sunlight onto that sheet and made a nice shadowless light on the operating field. And the nurse began dripping the chloroform, and I was awake enough to hear her say, "Well, I think he's under now." But what I didn't know was the sense of hearing was the last to disappear. So in fact, I didn't feel anything with a knife cut. But my appendix was in a pickle jar on the shelf in my room for years. Somebody must have thrown it away by this time.
That's great. Oh my gosh.
Did you ever go climb those 2 mountains that you see from the?
Indeed. I know we went up Elephant once,
Mhm.
but that was a more difficult climb. It was only once we went up the Elephant. But going up Baldy was not infrequent. I went up Baldy again when we visited some of our English friends. Oh, it must have been about 1971.
Uh-huh.
About then,
Yeah.
we visited Turkey with some of our English friends, and we climbed Baldy. And yeah, that was not a difficult climb. I remember in the wood, there's a clearing in the woods as you go up. Before you come to the end of the woods, but there's a clearing with a tombstone, a rather large, must have been a tall woman, Fatma. This tombstone is in the memory of a woman named Fatma who had been killed by lightning at that spot. Apparently, she's buried there.
Remember that?
Did you ever go beyond the mountains?
Yes.
To see what's beyond those 2?
A mystery. But, in the days of Harun al-Rashid and the Arabian Nights and the Byzantine Empire and the Dar al-Islam and the Dar al-Hajj, the Taurus Mountains was the boundary between the cross and the crescent. And the Byzantines spoke Greek, but called themselves in Greek Romai. They were the heritors of the Roman Empire. So what is now Anatolia was known in those days and to this day as Rum, because it was the Byzantine Roman Empire of the Romai. So that pass up between Baldy and the Elephant, that pass is to this day the Rum Road, because it goes over the Taurus. Baldy and the Elephant are about 8,000 feet, or just under 8,000 feet, and beyond that is a plateau at about 10,000. And yes, I've at least 2 occasions gone up the Rum Road, past the Elephant, long past the tree line. Nothing grows there at all. And on up to the plateau beyond them, where I remember sleeping under the stars on a bare ground and looking up at the stars, and there was this thing crossing the sky, and you know what it was? Sputnik. But then we wound down to the right and down into a gorge, a valley that ended in a lake about 200 meters, almost exactly round, 200 meters across, a deep green color, called Chini Göl, China Lake. And nobody ever knew how deep it was. It was a freshwater lake, crater?
Crater?
I don't think so. I think it was
Was it
all
rock?
limestone around there, but I could be wrong.
Huh.
You might well think it was a crater.
Hmm.
It may have been. My memory's hazy. But it was spectacular and a spectacular journey.
Yeah.
It took us 2 days to get there, at least. But coming back, we were in a hurry in Hungary, and I think we made it in 1 day. It was a long day.
Walking or horseback?
Well, you'd have a horse to carry we didn't have enough horses for everybody to ride at once on these trips. Somebody was always walking.
Mm-hmm.
So you went at a walking pace.
But you owned horses, or you rented them, or you?
Earlier on, yes.
Yeah.
In my childhood, we owned a horse.
Yeah.
But later, when we would go up there for the summer, we'd rent a horse. And we even rented a horse for a day for my granddaughter.
Huh.
She loves horses.
Ah.
I looked rather wistfully as they went down the trail because I discovered that my strength wasn't up to it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Climbing the castle, which of course virtually I did,
Yeah.
I found rather tuckered out.
Yeah,
Climbing
yeah.
the castle at my mid-80s.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Lamprun, isn't it?
Lamprun, that's
Lamprun.
right. That was the Armenian name
Yeah.
for it. And in my researches on history, there was a 11th century notable Armenian cleric, a bishop, Narses of Lamprun. Narses cut a figure in the 11th century or so.
Yeah. What are you working on now, Bill? You're working on
I'm
a.
working on a book called What We Cannot Say. And the title of the book is taken from the epigraph, which I saw in somebody's office. If you really want to understand us, you must listen carefully to what we cannot say. And this is my thesis, that the early missionaries and the people of the Ottoman Empire that they came to see talked past each other because they each operated, as we all do. We all have assumptions we don't know we're making. And they had a different set of assumptions. And my thesis, which will be debated and challenged, I'm sure, my thesis is this, that whereas the Americans, the Westerners, had as part of their emotional and intellectual baggage the Renaissance, which celebrated the individual. There was no Renaissance east of the Adriatic. There was no Renaissance, there was no Reformation. All those cultural changes that came to the West through the Renaissance never happened to the East. So the mentality of the people of the East, whether they were Christians or Muslims, was medieval. And they thought in medieval categories, which were communal. Whereas for the evangelical American missionaries, your conviction is your personal conviction, and your responsibility was a personal conviction. And the idea of the church being the source of your national identity was utterly alien to them. But it was central to the thinking of Christians and Turks and everybody else in the East. These were fundamentally different basic assumptions out of their different cultural background. There were post-Renaissance, pre-Renaissance, medieval mentality. This is my thesis, and I'm trying to defend it. But heavens, Betsy, I'm having so much fun.
Good.
I spent many happy hours in the Bodleian Library in Oxford. I got a permit, which I still cherish in my wallet, of admission to the Bodleian Library. You can't just walk in there. You know. You have to be accredited to have some legitimate scholarly reason to go there. And I was given this. Oh, the happy hours I spent in that wonderful library. Digging and digging and digging. Stuff that I couldn't have got anywhere else. And more hours in the University of Penn with the files of the Missionary Herald, with these quaint dispatches that the missionaries would send home about their experiences and their reactions. Because I'm interested in their reaction. How do they react to things? And what did they not react to? Turkey was going through the Tanzimat, major shift. So my historical chapter, my book begins with Mahmud II and his massacre of the Janissaries. He barely escaped with his life. He hid in the oven. When Selim was killed by the revolting Janissaries, and a very brief reign of, I think, Sultan, his name was Mustafa, but he didn't last very long. and Mahmud was the last male survivor of the line of Osman. And he just barely managed to preserve the dynasty by, as I say, hiding in the oven until things blew over, and Bayraktar restored order.
Wow.
And he mounted the throne in 1809, I think, as Mahmud II. A tough guy, a tough Omar was Mahmud II. Do you know the history? You probably went to school in Turkey.
Yeah, but I'm forgetting a lot of this history.
Yeah, Mahmud introduced these reforms, and one of them, of course, is getting rid of the Janissaries in high time. Jonas King, one of the early missionaries, was in Istanbul about the time of the massacre of the Janissaries. The streets were running with blood. But then he introduced educational reforms and so forth, but he was a wily old character. He knew what would happen if he was too fast, and what happened to his predecessor Selim was rather fatal with ideas of reform. But he knew how to do it. He introduced a new army, but he called it the victorious Mohammedan army, and he made sure that each division or each cadre of the troops had its own imam, and it framed up in the Muslim gospel and so forth. So he was canny with that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it was his son, Abdulaziz, who took the throne in 39, and under his minister, I think it was Rashid, instituted what is known in Turkish history as the Tanzimat. Now, the Tanzimat was not a revolution. Tanzim etmek is to regularize, to put in order. They were not abolishing the Ottoman system, they wanted to make it work better. And that is typical Ottoman thinking. You didn't tear something down and start something else, you just made it work better. And that's what Tanzimat was all about. That was what was going on when these missionaries were there.
And did they know that, or were they paying attention?
They had to know it, but I haven't found any evidence they paid much attention to it. They were interested in the gospel.
Can you give us an example of these people talking past each other with the different assumptions operative?
Well, sort of extempore, I'm not sure, but I can tell you this one I was just looking up recently. One of them, was it either King or Bird, writes in one of his dispatches to the Missionary Herald, these people are just don't seem to be susceptible to argument. They're not interested in argument. They'd rather believe some vague story. And it's wonderful. It's extraordinary in a country where there's so much falsehood that they're so much ready to believe a story of this sort. Well, my comment on this is as follows. When two people in an argument aren't getting anywhere with each other, it may be because they're starting with different assumptions and hypothesizing that the Armenian, they didn't say what he was arguing about, but he had only one topic on his mind, and what he would have been arguing about probably was religion. To the Easterner, religion isn't something you argue about, you take it from the authorities, the church authorities. To the American, the individualist, the descendant of the Renaissance, the inheritor of the Renaissance, the individual is primary. So of course you would argue about it. But these would have been unspoken assumptions. Now I'm just guessing that this is what lay between them. And his last sentence, it's extraordinary that with all this falsehood in this country, they were prepared to take something other. You see, he wasn't making the distinction between the skepticism that his opposite number probably would have had if a merchant was trying to sell him goods or he was being told something by a government, he'd be as skeptical as the next man. But skepticism vis-a-vis the authority of the church was just not part of his thinking, his assumptions. And I would guess that would be an example of different assumptions. But again, the Easterner assumes that religion is your national identity. Who am I? I'm an Armenian, which means I'm a Gregorian Christian. And I believe the doctrines of the Gregorian Church and so forth. I may think it's nonsense, but that's who I am. Even though I think it's nonsense, I'm an Armenian, therefore I'm a Gregorian. Utterly different from the pluralism of the American culture, where you could be Adoniram Judson, an early missionary of the American Board, set out for Burma, for the Congregationalists, and on the way became convinced that the only true faith was that of a Baptist, and he became a Baptist. Well, now, a Turkish citizen of the Ottoman Empire just wouldn't do that. It was even, at one point at least, illegal to change your millet. Entirely different set of assumptions about how a society is properly organized and structured. These are examples of the way they had different sets of assumptions. They could recognize the facts because they were visible, but the underlying assumptions that caused those facts to come into being would have been unvoiced on both sides,
Right.
is my hypothesis.
Wonderful. How long are you? How far along are you? Or?
Oh heavens! I've been writing this book for more than a decade, and I'm constantly interrupted. And I finally got a manuscript ready, and said to myself, "Well, I'm not having any luck getting a publisher for this. I guess what I need is an agent." So I got on the internet and surfed a bit, and up came Laurie Robin, who is an editor. And I liked the atmosphere, and I liked the atmosphere of the emails I began to exchange. They were friendly, they were cordial, they were relaxed. So I took her on and sent her the manuscript and paid her a fee. And she sent back 13 pages of commentary, professional commentary, on the content and on the style. Very useful, and the manuscript is all blue pencil with comments and questions and so forth. I've been writing it so piecemeal that I would repeat myself without realizing I'd done so, but she picked up this kind of thing. And she questioned my English in some points, but she was remarkably knowledgeable. I don't know where she knew this. I said, for example, that the Western Church differed from the East. In the West, they had monasteries, as in the East, but the East never had the friars who were out in the world. And she contradicted me. She said, the dervishes. Well, I contradict her. The dervishes, to my knowledge, and I read King Bruce's book, to my knowledge, the dervishes and the friars were alike in that they had conventicles of their own. They were secretive in the way that the monasteries never were. They were anti-establishment in the way that the monasteries never were. And although they lived out in the world, they were not out in the world with any missionary purpose. Right. So that I challenged her. But the fact that she knew this and would cite the Sufis struck me. And another point, I said that the king claimed to be, that his religion was based on faith, and she says no. He's expressing a sort of Gnostic insight. And again, I would differ from her. I don't think it was Gnostic, but the fact that she was literate enough to make this kind of citation brings out my respect. This is the gal that I'm glad to have on my side. So, since she sent it back, I've been trying to find time essentially to rewrite it. But going to England and doing all kinds of other things, I just never got to it. So when I got back from England this fall, we finally unpacked, and we're not going to England again. The 3 months interruption was deadly. You come back and everything's out, piled out high. No more. I resigned from a few things, and I'm dedicating at least an hour a day, 5 days a week, today accepted, to very happy work on it. Rewriting it. And new thoughts, putting in new ideas, cutting out some of the old stuff. I came to a passage the other day that reminded me of a story my father told about Robert Browning. So somebody asked Robert what this meant in one of his poems, and he stroked his chin and he says, when that was written, only God and Robert Browning knew what it meant, and now only God knows. I couldn't figure out what I meant when I put that in.
That's great.
Now, your mother, you said, had a diary, or your grandmother, which?
Grandmother kept a voluminous diary, which some years ago my mother typed out pages and pages and pages of it, all during the war years.
But which war?
World War I.
World War I. So
yeah, your mother didn't live in World War II.
Okay, so your mother typed up
by her mother's diary.
Her mother's diary.
And the mother's diary is undoubtedly among the Minnesota Historical Archives. There's I don't know how many shelf feet of Christie archives.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, why Minnesota? Because
he was fought through the war in a Minnesota regiment.
Oh.
He was a Minnesota boy.
Oh.
Minnesota farm boy.
Which part of Minnesota?
The name Bozeman sticks in my head, but I think that's where his father immigrated to. His father kept moving west.
That's Montana.
Yeah, okay. His father kept moving west, I know.
Yeah.
From the time he landed in America, and gosh, I don't know, second or third decade of the grandfather was born in Ireland.
Ah.
Yes, he was born in Ireland. I'm 1/8 Irish. So it must have been the 1840s.
Yeah.
He came
Yeah.
to the States. But anyway.
But you say he graduated from the Andover Theological Seminary.
Yeah.
And his wife, did she attend Abbott in any way?
No.
Abbott Academy?
No. I forget where she had her education. She was not an uneducated woman, certainly. Probably had a college degree. Are you looking at me? No, she certainly wouldn't have attended Abbott. She was a married woman by that time. And Bessie was born, apparently, when they were in Andover.
Uh-huh.
But one of their children died while they were in Andover?
Yeah, he was buried in the cemetery out back of the chapel, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, you think? Elizabeth
As I
Christie.
recall, it's Elizabeth,
You
yes.
should-
I know I visited the grave.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember you.
Mhm.
Well, one thing as we sort of end up, I guess, in this part, this project in Talas, do you have any thoughts on it, or just a greeting to people who might be watching
Yes, your present project.
Yes, the
I'm
present
so happy
project.
that, this is so eloquent. It is so eloquent of what years later this means to the graduates of the Talas School. The Talas School long since disappeared, but these no longer young men remember Talas with so much affection that they want to commemorate it.
And the clinic.
And the memory of Nilsson and of Scott and of, I think Woolworth was probably head of it at one time, but the various men who devoted themselves to it. Egad Sather, a wonderful guy, and others whose names escape me at the moment. What they gave to Talas School obviously means enough to you guys in your middle years that you want to do something about it, and not forgetting also the clinic and the horseback doctor, Yaman Doktor, galloping off across the countryside to visit his patients at all hours. He was impatient. He was hot-tempered sometimes, with all his cleanliness. And as you can see in this photograph, he was a kindly guy, but he could be impatient and get very angry. He was always a conservative. He was a Nixon conservative. He despised Woodrow Wilson. But that was he. He was a dedicated guy, and he and my mother were rendered service to so many people. How many villages? 800 villages. He didn't visit them all, but he had patients for all that many villages in bleak central Anatolia.
That's wonderful.
And I remember Ramsey, Dr. Ramsey, his medical colleague in Adna, when he went to Talas, he said, "Hey, kardeşim, şey boyadın mı yet?" Kaç senede? Şey boyar, babasına satar.
That's
But the
right.
Cappadocians had that reputation back in classical times.
Is that right?
Yep, the Cappadocians were slick. Even the stones are lightweight. You put a pebble and it floats.
That's true. Hummus.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Bill.
It
Thank
was
you.
Great fun.
Great fun.
Okay, we're recording now.
Who are you?
All right. Aris Topakbaş, Garabet Topakbaş'ın oğlu, Garabet Usta'nın 1958 senesinde Talas Kolej'e başladı. 1964'te İstanbul İktisat Fakültesi, sonra 71'de Mimar Mühendislikten Maçka'dan mezun oldum. İstanbul'da ilk içimizi tiyatronun yandıktan sonra onarımında çalıştım. Sonra Amerikan Hastanesi'nde teknisyen olarak. Ondan sonra Kadıköy'de işimizi elektrik üzerine dükkan açtık ve aynı anda asansör kabloları, flex cable dediğimiz asansörün altına giden kabloyu yaptık ve hala standartı bizdedir. Kablo su terbası fabrikasında yapılmaktadır. Ben Amerika'ya 78'de geldim buraya. Benim hanım benden 5 ay önce gelmişti çünkü oğlumuz burada doğmuştu. Ben işimi kardeşim Can'a bıraktım, ufak kardeşim. William bizden 10 sene daha önce geldi, benden 11 sene önce gelmişti Amerika'ya. Kendisi hala buradadır. Ekonomi okumuştur. Ve aynı anda da Holiday Inn otellerinin Lehigh Valley'deki 7 otelin operating manager'ıdır. Babam ve annem Amerika'ya bizden 86 senesinde geldiler. Babamı 92 senesinde bir felç geçirdi. Stroke oldu. Sağ tarafından biraz tutmuyordu. Ama kendisi 4 sene çok iyi bir şekilde tekerlekli sandalyesiyle beraber bize de geldi, eve de geldi. Biz inşaatlarımızda bize bazı yanlışlarımızda bağırdı da, yani iyiydi. Ondan sonra 94'te kendisini kaybettik. Annem Abu Dhabi'de kendi evinden sonra apartmanına gitti. Apartmanda bir kat, kendi kendine hala iyidir ve bugün 87 yaşındadır. 1916, Mayıs 16 doğumludur. Talas'ta doğmuştur. Babamla 41 senesinde nişanlanmışlar ve 45 senesinde evlenmişlerdir.
Biraz konuşsun.
Sen konuşursun biraz.
Tabii. Zaruhi Hanım, biraz anlatır mısınız o terzilik işinizi? Nasıl yaptınız? Nerede çalıştınız? Anlatın biraz. O çok güzel bir şey. Güzel
Mrs. Kahirlerini çok düşünürdü.
Şöyle devam.
Kahirlerini çok düşünürdü. Ne yapıyor demiş. Gitmiş fabrikadan keten, toplarla keten almış. Pembe, mavi, beyaz almış. Onu kendi çiziyor, gösteriyor. Yapamıyor tabii. Ben bunu duydum. Ben de çok güzel terziydik. Evde dikiş dikerdi. 7 kardeşi de evde dikenler de var. Ama ben diyor ki akşamda gelip dikiş de dikerim diyor. Ben gittim. Birkaç tane çizdim. Birisi kaynar mı oldu? Yani devamı gelir misin dedi. Gelirim dedi. Her sabah giderdi. Saat 8'de. Akşamın 4'ünde gelir.
Endişe yapıyordu.
Çiziyordu.
Ha.
Eve de getirip işliyor. Yanlış yapanlar için öyle olmaz. Şu şekilde işlenecektir. Onun için benden çok memnundu. Kapana ne kadar orada çalıştım.
Usta. Siz usta oldunuz.
Yusuf da benden çok memnun oldu. Ben de tabii ondan çok memnun oldum.
İşte o sebeple de babam da Doktor Nüt'ün oğlu gibi olduğu için
Çok
babamla nişanlanmasını istemişler. Evlendikten sonra da birinci oğlu da bana bizim doğum doktorumuz Doktor Nüt'tü. Talas'ta. Ben demiş ismimi isterim ama tabii demiş dedenin ismi daha önemli. Onun için bana dedemin ismi konmuş. Ve ikinci doğunca ona da William. Doktor Nüt'ün ismi verilmiştir. Ama kendisi isteği üzerine olmuştur.
İstedim.
Ne güzel.
Çok yani bir aile gibiydik.
Aile.
Bir aile gibiydik.
Babam 40 sene, tam 40. senesini Borç heyetinde doldurmuştu. Ondan önce de birkaç sene önce şey olarak aylık nasıl söyler, günlükle falan çalışmış. Ondan sonra tekrar okul kapandıktan sonra herhalde 3 sene durdu orada. Guest House'da falan kaldılar. Ondan sonra İstanbul'a geldi. İstanbul'a gelince Amerikan Hastanesi'nin ilave binasını yaptılar, inşaatını. Sonra Cameron Sertel'in köşkünü Ortaköy'deki köşkünü yaptı. Ve Tekfe'nin restoranının da bir şeyini yaptı ama bilmiyorum ne olduğunu tam olarak. Son işi olarak da Harbiye Oda Evi'nin subaylar restoranının onarımını yaptı ve özellikle emekli olmuştu.
Bir de hastaneye bir
İlave söyle.
avizasyon var. Onu dedi mi?
Öyle.
O başına düşmüş. Asamamışlar. Başkaları asmış. O dedesinden yaralandı. O çok zahmetli.
Ondan sonra pek dikiş falan biraz şey oldu.
Örselendi oldu. Çok örselendi.
Ondan sonra emekli oldu. Bizim dükkanda gelirdi. Ben Amerika'ya geldikten sonra ben Can'la beraber, ufak kardeşimle beraber biraz dükkanda kaldı. Sonra Can işi biraz daha büyütünce.
Bacana dedi ki benim yanıma gel dedi. Kardeşimin kocası. Onun yanına gitti. O Amerika'ya geldi. O çıkardı oldu. Yani durmadan çalıştı ya. Hiç geldi.
Her zaman için yani şeydi, pahalıydı.
Tabii.
Şimdi bizim burada 2 oğlumuz var. SETA yüksek derece aldı hemşerilikten Villanova Üniversitesi'nde. 25 sene İstanbul American Bristol'dan mezun olduğunun 25. senesinden bir hafta sonra resign etti nursing'den. Administrator olarak şimdi consulting firmasında healthcare departmanının consulting manager'ıdır. İşinden memnundur, seviyor. Ben de Amerika'ya geldikten sonra 4 sene kadar bir Alcoa'nın Medical Departmanı'nda teknisyen olarak çalıştım. Sonra servisi büyüttüm. Servis kısmında Alcoa'nın ortağı oldum. Daha sonra Richmond, Virginia'da, Philadelphia'da ve Hartford, Connecticut'ta medical ofisler açtık. Alcoa'nın operating manager olarak o üçünde dolaştım, idare ettim. 99 senesinin September'ında tamamen bıraktım ve State Inspector olarak Pennsylvania State'in Health Department Inspector olarak şimdi Southeast Pennsylvania'da.
Maşallah.
İnşaat yapıyoruz, evimizi büyütüyoruz. Her gün misafirlere kapımız açık. Bazı arkadaşlarımız geliyor. Yegane burada şimdi görüştüğümüz, yani samimi olduğum arkadaşım Talas'tan Şengül Sakarya. Kanada, Toronto'da bulunuyor, kuyumcudur. Ona gideriz. Babası arabacı Kasım Ağa derlerdi. Kolejin ekmeğini getirirdi arabasıyla. Florida'da bir yerimiz var, oraya gideriz. Florida'da. Onlarla beraber. Bizimki 2 senede. Onlarınki Fort Lauderdale değil. Onun için Fort Lauderdale'i tercih ediyoruz çünkü Miami'ye yakındır, denize yakındır diye.
Kilisede azaltıyor.
Burada dini şeylerle de biraz, kiliseyle de uğraşıyoruz. İnşaatını falan yapıyoruz.
Evet, azaltıyor.
Üyesiydim ama şimdi artık 4 sene sonra o işi bıraktım. Yalnız ihtiyaç oldukça. Ekseriyetle Health Department, State of Pennsylvania Health Department'da yapıyorum. Onun için yeni valimiz, şehir valimiz de Governor, eyalet valisi oluyor. Governor oldu. Onun için şöyle böyle tanıyoruz. Her 2 haftada bir state'e gidiyorum. Harrisburg'a, başkentimize. Hayatımızdan memnunuz.
Çok iyi. Bahçeniz Talas'a benziyor.
Bahçemiz bir
Yaprası yoktu.
Bahçemiz çok büyüktür. Her çeşit meyve ağacımız vardır. Buna ilaveten Talas'taki çamaşırhanenin bilenler yaparlar. Yanında bir tut ağacı vardı. Ve çamaşırhanenin beton damında tut toplanırdı. Oradan dal getirdim, aşı yaptım ve aynı tut bizim bahçede vardır. Vişnemiz de Yugoslavya'dan gelmiştir ama Türk vişnesi şeklindedir. Ve 86 tane meyve ağacı ve fındık, kestane, ceviz, toplam 86 tane meyve ağacımız ve kuru yemiş ağacımız vardır.
Maşallah.
Ne Bilya'da arzu var, ne İstanbul'dakinde arzu var. Hepsini toplamış Allah Aris'e vermiş.
Bahçeli.
Bahçe işi. Bahçe işi, kilise işi. İstanbul'da bir de kiliseye hiç kadar olmaz. Bilya'm da olmaz. Bu hepsi mükemmel.
Biz community'ye nasıl yani Kilise community watch.
Kilise çok güzel.
Community works?
No, no, watch.
Watch.
Like neighborhood watch.
What, yes?
How do we say that in how do we say that in Turkish?
Bekçilik.
We go like a guard.
Yeah,
We go
guard.
around at night time. Geceleri dolaşırız. İki kişi.
Ne zaman?
Burada.
Bu lokal olarak bizim bu lokalın like a
Neighborhood
Guard.
watch.
neighborhood guard.
Guard.
Neighborhood watch. Her 3 günde bir sıramız olur ve benim komşum İtalyan bir komşum var. Onunla beraber dolaşırız. Yabancı bir araba görürsek.
The whistle?
No. Artık whistle de telefonla.
I know.
Telefonla. Yabancı bir araba görürsek kim olduğunu falan neighborhood'da dolaşırız.
Okay, let's talk about Talas now.
Okay.
When you were a student at the school.
Yeah.
Çocukken Talas okula gitti. Değil mi?
Ve
Evet.
O zaman
Evet.
hakkında
ilk birinci senemizde okulda yaptık. Okulun yukarı yatakhanesinde yaptık.
Konak?
Yok. Şeyde.
Yeni doğum.
Okulun üst katında.
Ha, okul
Yeah.
mu?
Ama ikinci sene aşağıya geleceğimizde evde yapmıştık. Çünkü ev yakındı. İkinci senelerde evde yaptık. Yani birinci sene okulda en üst katta.
Ha.
Orada yapmıştık. O zaman mayrinler vardı.
Hangi hocaları hatırlıyorsunuz? Dersleri falan.
Keller,
Dr.
Kingsbury,
Kingsbury.
Myron,
Myron.
Matthews,
Matthews.
and
Was either
Ludwig, Mr. and Mrs. Scott.
They were your teachers?
Oh yeah, your mom was.
What did
Gatenby teacher, sure. And,
Gatenby.
Yeah. And,
That's right. Gatenby.
Mr. Edmonds.
Edmonds.
Mr. Edmonds.
What are some of the things you remember, Aris, from those school days?
Study hall.
Study halls.
And the Tenki Saati.
Think it's
Yeah,
that.
this was a very, çok önemli.
What do you remember about Think it's that? Ne hatırlıyorsun?
İyi bir hatıramız vardı. Biz,
Tavuklarını aldı.
bir dakika.
30 tane tavuk getirdi.
Ama bir dakika.
Güzel.
Okulda en önemlisi Mr. Ludwig'in bir testi vardı. Choose type yani ABC.
Multiple choice.
Multiple choice. Bu okulun üçüncü katında bir copy room vardı. Copy yaparlardı orada. Biz 4. kattan, dormitörden, Durmuş Bey öğretmenlerin yatak odasıydı. Biz oradan iple gece aşağı indik. Camı açtık. Ali Kadesler, o Mustafa Kadesler, sonra Hilmi soyadını hatırlamıyorum. Termo düzgün tencere yapanlar.
Nickname nedir?
O ve Şevki vardı. Şevki şimdi rahmetli oldu. Biz iple aşağı indik. Camı açtım benim de iple ve oradan çöp tenekesinden karbon kapüleri almıştık. Fakat içeri girdiğimizde hava yağmurluymuş, izlerimiz yanmış ve ertesi gün herkes tabii 80-85 alacak şekilde ayarlamıştık ama Mr. Ludwig sorular değişmiş, yeniden basmış. Tamamen yanlış cevaplar yazmıştık. Fakat masanın üzerinde yaş izleri, ayak izlerini görmüşler. En önemlilerinden birisi oydu. Bir de futbol sahası, orada futbol oynardık. En önemli bir şey, daha başka bir şey, tuvaletler dışarıdaki. Kışın çok orijinal bir şeydi. Bilmiyorum sen görmüş müsündür onu ama futbol sahası, okulun tam kapısının karşısında tuvaletler vardı ki bütün dışarıdaydı.
Evet, evet.
Ya,
zor.
İçerideki yalnız akşamları kullanılırdı. İçeridekini kullanamazdı. O gece yatakhanede yatanlar için ve öğretmenlerin ayrıydı. Bak, tuvaletler dışarıdaydı.
Zor iş bu. Aris, babanız Garabet Usta o marangozhanede falan nasıl işler?
Marangozhanede hazırlık sınıfına, prep'lere atölye dersi verildi.
Neler?
İş dersi. İşte tornavida, çekiç, tahta tokmak,
Hı hı.
bazı şeyler yaparlar.
Bazen
Bıçak.
ski de yapıyorlar.
Ya tabii kayak yaparlardı. Kayaklarının, okulun kayaklarının şöyle böyle hepsi atölyede yapılmış.
Ya.
Proje olarak yapılmış olanlar.
Hı hı.
En çok alışverişe
Sonra alışverişini okulun yapardı. Ya babam
Tabii.
okuldu. Onu
Tarzanla.
yapardı. Tarzanla. Yani.
Tarzan neydi? O
54 Chevrolet kamyonet. Sonra bir tane Ford, Alman Ford, ya, Alman Ford'u bir minibüs almıştı okula. Kemerlerini kullandığı. Sonra babanın Mr. Scott'ın
Volkswagen'in.
minibüsü.
Onlarla ters eden.
Maynard'lar, Dr. Maynard, Mr. Blake,
Blake.
ya hocalarımız da onlar. Dr. Shepard.
Ya. Ne yaparlardı
Dr.
o?
Shepard benim science hocamdı.
Science hocam.
Science hocamdı. Dr. Maynard da herhalde İngilizce bölümü.
Olabilir.
İngilizce,
Evet.
literatür öyle diye hatırlıyorum.
Ama onlar babamın zamanında değildi.
Yok, babandan sonra.
Daha sonra.
Baban ayrıldı, İstanbul'a gittikten
Evet,
sonra
evet.
oradaydı. Mesela Blake gelmişti.
Bütün alışverişini, sonra tamiratlara
Hepsine garabet üstü.
hepsi yapardı, hem üstünde nazırdı yani.
Ben
Fazla yıkanmış.
çok
Çok fazla.
çok
Kendine göre çok fazlaydı.
bunu göstermeniz lazım. Bunu verdiler, değil mi? Bunu açıp gösterirseniz anlatın. Nedir bu? Oku ona. Şey görsün. Aha.
Bu borç heyetinden 40 seneyi doldurduğuna dair verilmişti.
Actually,
yollamıştı.
hold it up just in front of your chest.
Like this.
Just here.
Higher.
Aha.
Excellent. Okay.
Gümüş tabak bu 40. senesini şirkette doldurduktan sonra emekli olduğunda İstanbul'da verilmişti.
Hastayla de. İçinde çok güzel mektup yazmış ama.
Borç heyetinde bir toplantı yapılmıştı.
Beklediğinde çaldılar. Almışlar, bitirememişler. Çünkü çok iltifatlı bir mektup.
Garabet Usta'nın çok emeği var.
Çok
Emeği var.
çok yani.
Hepinizin çok emeği var. Hepimizin çok iyi hatıraları var. Garabet Usta.
Talas'ta başka hatıralardı, değişikti. Birkaç arkadaşımız burada geldiklerinde aradılar.
Hı hı.
Hatta Maviş, Mustafa Maviş geldi, bizle beraber kaldı burada bir gün. Wharton School'da seminere gelmişti. Kendisi Efes Birsen'de tahmin ediyorum, menajer gibi bir şeydi orada. Gelenler bazıları aradılar, konuşuruz.
Hı hı. Babanızı gördüler. Yani geldikleri zaman.
Babamızı herhalde Maviş gördü geldiğinde, hayattaydı diye biliyorum. Fakat babam felç geçirdikten sonra biz burada bir parti yaptık.
Hı hı.
Bütün Talas'tan tanıdıkları ve Kayseri'nin tanıdıkları 86 kişi vardı. Washington'dan, Boston'dan gelenler vardı. Türkler bir geçtiler. Hatta Whittler'lar. Mr. Miss Whittler, that time vardı.
Arabası, hatta
Paul Nelson ve
Paul Nelson.
hanımı da vardı.
Evet.
Onlar şimdi insurance agency herhalde, insurance işi yapıyor.
Evet.
Sonra Mr. Scott bize geldi. Mr. Scott kaldı bizde 2 defa geldi. Isabel Hemingway 2 defa misafirimiz olmuştu. Upper Darby evinde.
yaptı.
Evet.
Ben diye teşekkür mektubu yazmış olmuştu yatağına. Odamı bana bıraktım.
İzi. Şimdi inşallah izi yoklayacağız.
Göreceksiniz.
Göreceksin. Bir hafta sonra falan. Ve aynı şeyi onun için yapacağız. O da aynı filmde olacak.
What was Talas like when you were growing up? What kind of a place was it? What did you do? I'm thinking of elementary school before you even got to the school of Talas.
It was regular, çocukluk. I mean, when you ask that question, what do you mean? What we were doing, or how we were living, or what?
Yeah.
Hayat ekseriyette tenis kortta tenis oynardık. tahtadan maket yapardık.
Saklambaç.
Saklambaç oynardık.
In the caves.
Yani mağaralarda. Ama bilmiyorum herkes bilir mi ama birçok yerler değişmişti. Eskiden büyük garajın altında büyük mağaralar vardı. Peynir falan saklarlarmış hastane zamanında. Sonra hastanenin yanında büyük mağaralar vardı. Birkaç tanesi çöktü ve doldurdular sonra. Ceviz ağaçlarının altında. Orası bizim oyuncak yerimizdi. Oynadığımız yerlerdi. Aynı anda yaz aylarında ilkokula giderken de kayısı toplardık, erik toplardık. Şirketin reçeli yapılırdı okulun. Yani o büyük bir şeydi. Ihlamur ağaçları vardı, ıhlamur toplardık. Kurutulurdu. Bütün yaz...
Evi bıraktık, hastaneye koştuk.
Değil mi?
Ya,
hastanenin içinde oturduk.
Şimdi Kerolan Dağ Devri'nin ikinci katında. Dağ Devri'nin ikinci katı onarım yapıldıktan sonra Kerolar oturuyorlardı altta. Üst kat yapıldıktan sonra biz oraya taşınmıştık. Orada 8 sene kadar, 10 sene. 10 sene.
Biz gittikten sonra.
Evet.
Ne güzel.
Hintliler vardı. Sizin evde kim vardı o zaman? O sizin evde
İki var.
yok, NATO'da erkeklikte çalışan bir Amerikalı aile gelmişlerdi. Onlar kalıyorlardı.
Aris bir oyun oynardık. Ona 9 taş mıydı? Yani küp gibi bir taşlar yani çanak veya öyle kırık şeylerle 9 tane üst üste bir top atardık. İki takım böyle.
Kaç olursa.
İlk önce topu atıyordu. O 9 ekli olan yani taşı yıkmak için. Fakat o sırada iki takım olduğu için yani top birine değerse o çıkıyor. O, hatırlıyor musun?
Hatırlamıyorum.
Saklambaç da oynardık.
Saklambaç başka. Tabii.
O mağaralarda saklambaç oynardık. Ve çok güzel doğum günü partileri yapardınız bizim için. Zaruhi Hanım. Aris'in, William'ın doğum gününde sizin eve gelirdik. Bize pastalar, şeyler yapardınız. Ara sıra da bizim eve gelirdiniz değil mi? Partide doğum günü.
Thanksgiving'lerde sizin evde olurdu.
Evet.
Bazen yukarıda okulda, Christmas okulda olurdu. Thanksgiving sizin evde olurdu.
Su böreği yaptım getirdim.
Su böreği, evet. Tabii, neler yapardınız? Tuna Hanım'la yardım ederdiniz. Bir resim getirdim, onu şimdi göstereceğim ama İzi Hanım bize Christmas'ta hep o İzi Hanım'ın doğumunu yapardı. Hatırlıyor musunuz?
Evet.
Şimdi resminizi göstereceğim, getireceğim.
Bir de başka bir şey vardı, biz çok ufak çocukken doktorun için 2 tane atı vardı. Talas'ta Apalak diye bir adam vardı ki atların bakımını yapardı. Biz de atlara yapardık, zeytinyağıyla kaşar derler, böyle bir bezle atları parlatırdık. Yani sandalyenin üzerine çıkarak atı parlatırdık. Çünkü ata bakım yaparsak biz ata biner dolaşırdık. O caddede dolaşırdık tabii. Onun için daima isterdik ki atlara, ama çok ufaktık o zaman.
Evet.
Atlara yapalım, yaymaya götürelim ki ata binelim diye. Ve hiç palansız üzerine çıplak ata binerdik.
Hatırlıyorsunuz.
Onu hatırlarım tabii.
Doktorun
2 tane atı vardı.
Hatırlıyor musunuz bunu? 2 at, babanızın 2 atını Aris zeytinyağıyla
parlatır. Ondan sonra da bizim bir tane atımız olmuştu. Köpeklerden sonra hatırlarsın. Prenses, senin köpeğin?
Prenses.
Tarzan bizimki. Ve Miss Corman'ın köpeklerinin, Lady and Lord'un yavrularıydı.
Evet. O köpeklerle çok iyi zaman geçirdik.
Sonra biz gelirken bir köpeğimiz vardı.
Lucky.
Yani onun kadar hiçbir köpek olamaz.
Hatırlıyorsunuz, doktorun için bir Lucky'si vardı. Aynı renkti, onun için ismini Lucky, Matthews'lar Lucky demişlerdi. Matthews'un David'le Bobby ufak bebektiler o zaman. Benim omuzuma alırdı. Resimleri vardı bende, ben gittiğimde götürdüm. David,
bizimle beraber Gaziantep'e gitmiş.
Evet. Yani, o gitti Gaziantep'e. Yok, o bizimki değil. Onlarınki Lucky Gaziantep'e gitmişti. Orada ölmüştü. Bizimki, biz gelirken aynı Border Collie'ydi. Border Collie ama ismini Lucky koymuştuk aynı renkli diye. Biz Matthews'lara bıraktık.
Hastalandıydı biliyor musun?
Ya.
Bir hastalandı, hiçbir şey yemiyor.
Ya.
Ayrı bir odaya yatırdı, süt. Çocuğa şişelerden süt böyle onu...
Isabel Hemingway şişeyle süt verirdi.
Her gün doktora
Her gün.
gittiler Kayseri.
Aha.
İyi oldu,
İyi oldu.
iyi oldu, geldi. Hiçbir çocuğu benim
Kucağına
yanıma
almaz,
oturtmadı.
kıskanırdı.
Gel benim kucağıma oturup onları ayağından gider. Onlar çocuklar ister ki biz de gerekti, imkan yok. İşte baktım köpek geliyor, kapının, köpek diye bilmiyorum, kapının zili çalıyor. Garabet kapının zili çalıyor. Şaşırma kız bu saatte kapının zili mi çalar? Bir de bak yürüp geziyor. Geliyor bir daha
Paris'ten
çalıyor.
gelmişler. Kenarlarla beraber.
Çalıyor dedi.
Kenarlar arabaya getirmişler.
Kapılar kanadı açılıyor, araba giriyor. Aris geldi dedi. Aman bu Aris geldi diye kapıya ettiğini görse insan
Ama biz zil yapmıştık kapının üzerine böyle bir tahta yapmıştık.
nasıl basıyor?
Eline paket olursa
Ayağıyla
bir şeyle gitmek için onu böyle çalardı zili ya.
Köpek.
Köpek çalardı. Bak yapardı onu.
Ondan sonra istedik tüketiletti. Orada bir...
Matthews'lara, Dr. Matthews'lara bırak.
Yok, Matthews'ta başka
Dr. Matthews'lara
uçakta şey...
değil, Dr. Matthews'lara. Matthews'lara bıraktı köpeği.
Bize bırakın dedi. Çocuklar olmadı mı
Ya.
da çocuklar
Ana değil.
almışlar.
O çıkardı, o değil. Biz Matthews'lara bıraktık köpeği. Matthews'larda da bir sene sonra öldü köpek.
Köpek her
Ağlayarak
gece kapıda ağladı.
Sizi özledi. Sizi özledi.
Ondan öyle.
İşte bu kadar.
Yani çok şeyler...
Şimdi doktor Nüklemiş'in için burada olması da çok büyük bir şeydir bizim için.
Biraz onlarla beraber konuşun.
Yeah.
Bill, would you want to talk to Aris a little about? Come on, sit and well, actually, why don't we pan around just sort of get? Siz de buyurun.
Kusura bakmayın siz.
Öyle diyorum değil mi hala? Benden daha iyi tanıdım. Bizde Mrs. Newt her zaman için Mother Newt bir ana gibi öyleydi. Çok özel, Talas'ın anasıydı. Öyle demek lazım. Büyük anasıydı. Herkese, her gelen yeni öğretmen Amerikalı onun evinde yemek yerdi. Orada şey olurdu. Babası, Dr. Newt'un babası, Dr. Newt de ben iyi hatırlarım. Arabayla köye giderken düşmüş ve kalçasını kırmıştı.
Babam mı?
Babam, cibin, araba, öyle değil tabii. Cipte yeri yokmuş. Çamurluğa oturmuş ve kayınca kalçasını kırmıştı. Ben onu iyi hatırlarım. Çünkü aşağıda klinikte şeyi vardı, yatağı vardı. Onun üzerinde otururdu ve benim halam da Zaruhi'de ilaç verdiği için iyi hatırlarım. Doktor Newt orada yazardı reçeteyi. O gider içeriden verirdi. Ben de pakete koy şeylere. Çünkü hapları sayardı. Ben saymaya yardım ederdim.
Biliyorsun. Mesela Mother Newt babamdan 10 sene yaşlıydı. 60-70 sene kadar babamı büyüttü.
60-70 sene kadar. Çok iyi hanım. Çok iyi hanım. Evet, bir aile gibiydi. Büyük bir aile.
Bütün Talas bir aileydi.
Olamaz.
Yani.
Öyle aile. Yani, hiç. Ben düşünüyorum da kız kardeşinden bile olamaz o. O kadar muhabbetliydi.
Çok.
Orada severim.
Çok.
O da biz onları, onlar da bize öyle.
Evet.
Ben büyük kız kardeşim rahatsızlandı. Kim yapan evine götürdü, misafir etti. 15 gün.
15 gün?
Taze teyze.
Yani Doktor Newt'lerin evinde benim teyzem, annemin kız kardeşi.
Büyük kız kardeşim.
Orada 15 gün sizin evde, bir yandaki ufak evde misafir olarak orada bakmıştı.
Yani bir aile akrabadan görmedik biz. Akrabamız da vardı. Kayseri'de de, Talas'ta da. Hiçbiri demedi ki bir gün götürelim de yatıralım, gezdirelim. Hiç.
Ama Doktor Newt olsun, isminiz olsun, yani hakikaten
çok yani.
oradaki herkesin anası ve babası gibiydi.
Yeah.
Bambaşka.
Evet.
Bambaşka.
Orada öyleydi çünkü onlar saygı vardı onlara karşı büyük olarak ve onların da sevgisi herkese ve buna ilaveten Talas Koleji olsun, talebesi, öğretmeni, geleni yani herkesi Amerikalısı, Türk öğretmenleri de bir aileydi orası.
Aile.
Yani çünkü her şeyden uzaktı. Kış aylarında bir aileydi. Olan kendi kendiydi.
Kış hakkında ne hatırlıyorsunuz? Talas'ın kışı çok
Ya
güzel.
ilkokula gittiğimiz
Nelerle kayardık
Ya.
oradan? Tahta,
çantayla
üzerinde. Hocalarımız da kızardı.
But you don't understand this, but when we were going to school, when we were kids at Talas, we had to go down the slope to the elementary school, and we were almost the same, time we went to school. We had wooden school bags. They were specially made, so we sit down and we slide down the.
Oh.
Yeah.
And our teachers would get angry. My teacher would get angry.
Because the books were getting wet, inside whatever we had inside.
Yeah.
We get soaking wet. And we had very nice, we had a tennis court there and we were putting ice. You remember the ice skating on
Ice skating on the
Yeah,
tennis
on the
court.
tennis court.
Flooding my
Yeah.
mother's flooded the tennis court and we'd have ice skating.
We shoveled the snow on the side and we flooded there
Yeah,
so many times.
it was a lot of fun.
Because they didn't allow us to go out. We had a small pool. Doktorun için ufak bir havuzu vardı orada. Do you remember that?
House? Yes, but
The square
my
one?
family had a cistern there.
Yeah.
A cistern, a water collecting cistern.
Would that freeze also?
Yeah,
Ice
but-
skating?
Oh, sure.
But they didn't allow us to go on there.
Top sahası vardı, top oynağı vardı.
Tabii.
Yeah, but
Tennis.
Mostly the tennis court.
Okay.
We put the ice, we freeze it up, and that was the
I remember
safest place, yeah.
mom wanted
Yeah.
to do that because
Yeah.
she used to skate
Yeah,
in
she
Minnesota
loved skating,
and
yeah.
she really loved that skating. Yeah.
But she teach us how to skate, and
She did?
skate for sometimes you cannot balance yourself.
Yani sizin aile kadar iyi aile bulunamaz.
Estağfurullah.
Benim gördüğüm.
Estağfurullah.
Hiç yok. Ben bu yaşa geldim. Çok dikkat ediyor. Hiç bulamıyorum. Yani bir tane
Hep-
bulamıyorum.
She says there's no family like your family.
Çok iyi bir aile. Çok-
Yani,
Hem
Ama-
yardımcı, hem akılcı.
Mhm.
Nasıl diyeyim?
Hep-
Bambaşka bir insan.
ama o günkü ortamla bugünkü ortam arasında fark çok
Fark
büyük.
çok.
Biliyorsun.
Fark
O zaman okulun arabası vardı.
Hı.
O okulun arabası, doktorun için bir şey var, station wagonu vardı.
Yes.
Sen hatırlıyor musun onu? Wood grainli, Dodge,
I think
Town
so.
and Country. Arkasında büyük bir sandık vardı, ilaç sandığı. Ben onu iyi hatırlarım.
So
Mesela,
atlardan sonra onunla
tabii
giderdi.
araba vardı. Arabadan sonra bir de okulun Tarzan vardı.
Tarzan'ı
Ama Tarzan'dan eski Tarzan.
Ah,
E,
Orange.
Lacivert vardı. Kapısının üzerinde handheld, işaret, o işaret vardı, onu hatırlarım.
Ha.
Bir de Talas diye yazardı üzerinde.
Aris şimdi biliyor musunuz? Şu anda bunun için yapıyoruz zaten bunları bir yerde. Talas'ta, Mayıs'ta o klinik binasını bir restore edecekler. Ve orada bir Heritage Cultural Center açacaklar. Orada gelen misafirleri falan yani yukarıda odalar yapıyorlar. Misafir odası, yatak odası. Bazı projeler düşünüyorlar. İngilizce dersi okutacaklar yazın. Fakat bütün bu resimler, videolar oraya koyacaklar. Yani bir hatıra için.
Ben şimdi bazı mesela şeyler var. Şu biraz önce söylediğim.
Aha.
Babamın ilk arabasını, Dr. Müjde'nin aldığı araba var.
Ben,
O arabanın Lincoln'ın tam kliniğin önünde benim iş telefonu. el çıkıyor
aha,
ve arabayı ilk aldığı gün.
aha.
O resim var bende. Ben onu e-mail yapacağım.
Yaparsınız.
E-mail yaparım.
Çok güzel.
Sonra başka bir resim var ki Dr. Newton halamla
Hı hı.
bir röntgeni vardı.
Ha.
X-ray. I remember the wood.
Yeah.
Ben attan düşüp omuzum kırılınca
Oo.
benim orada kolumun filmini çekmişlerdi.
Ya.
İyi bilirim ceren çarpardı.
Aa.
Her şeye bastıklarında
Evet.
ceren olurdu.
Ya.
Onun için tahta şeyin üzerine çıkarlardı, öyle basarlardı. Ben o röntgeni iyi hatırlıyorum.
Ay, ay, ay.
World War I
Yeah.
machine, I think, a real old X-ray.
And it gave you X-rays. I mean, it gave
Oh,
you
yeah.
shocks.
Well, sometimes it's yeah.
Yeah.
Not the person eksiği çekene verirdi zaten şeyde.
Yes.
Sonra başka bir şey de o bir kendi ofisinde doktorun için üzerinde Amerika'dan gelme bir damgası olan bir eza dolabı vardı ki kitaplık gibi. Do you remember that? There was a big bookcase with glasses where he keeps all his special medication in there. Yeah. O ilaçları sayarak verirlerdi. Zarfa konardı, zarfta bunu sabah alın, bunu akşam alın.
Tabii.
Her şey
Talas.
çok güzeldi.
Yeri de güzeldi, her şey başkaydı.
Zamanında yani, asıl zamanında zade yer derler yani.
Zengin, lüks yer.
Evet.
Öyleymiş.
Ama şimdi şöyle bir şey, bak, bizde bir video, Kaliforniya'dan bir MGM'in, Çekirkorya'nın akrabalarından birisi Talas'ı ve Ermeni settlement yerlerini gezmiş Türkiye'de, video çekmiş. Çektiği resimler içinde büyük evler ve antika evler olan yegane Talas'ı almış. 17 tane ev.
Şu anda
Şu an
var mı yoksa duruyor mu?
evlerin 91'de çekilmiş. 17 tane eski evin konak, kolejin binası, Göbek yanların büyük evi olarak. Sonra yeni bir yatıkhane. Ondan sonra kaya başında bir ev. Çok antika.
Kolejde
Kolej var.
bahçeye yapılan
O başka sonra Atatürk'ün köşkü.
orası bizim
Arsası. Arsası.
Atatürk Köşkü'nü.
Atatürk'ün köşkünün arsası 5 altına 50 altına. 50 altına. Onu devlet satın almış orasını. Kaya başına.
hem bizim hem Garabet'in.
Tabii.
Garabet'in üstte bizim de altta. Garabet. Aldılar. Yaptılar. Ben çocuğu beğenmedim. Burada Atatürk oturur mu dedim çocuğumda. Atatürk gelmiş. Demiş ki kıvak ederse otursun.
Valilik konağı olsun.
Valilik bir sene oturdu oturma. Hepsi çocukları koydu. Bizi çok güzel. Model. Hiç yapamam.
Ama şimdi onu almışlar ama bazı resimler var, ben onları videodan yaparım.
Çok iyi olur.
Andre copy yapar, elektronikle yapar, e-mail şeyine koyabiliriz. Başka çok ufak resimler var. Eski Isabel Hemingway'in çektiği, Ernest Hemingway'in üzerinde ismi yazılı olan bir kamera makinesi var. Herhalde o bizdedir hala, öyle diye biliyorum çatıda. Çünkü Isabel'e vermiş. Isabel Hemingway'e vermiş. O da benim horakörüm halama vermişti, Zaruhi'ye. Ernest Hemingway. Üzerinde Kodak olan ben onu vereyim, hatta koşsunlar orada.
Müze yapacaklar herhalde.
Bu tabak gibi şeyler var, başka şeyler de var. Sonra 2 tane bizde büyük bir vazo var ki benim büyük babamın annesi Gülbekyan ailesinden olduğu için onların initial'ları olan üzerinde sarı 2 tane vazo var.
Aris Gülbekyan is related to you in some way?
My grandmother.
Gülbekyan's
my grandmother.
Your grandmother?
Yeah.
My God.
Yeah. My father.
Deye var
Yeah.
önünde.
Evet.
Dedeydi kofterlere gireydi.
Evet.
Yes, my grandmother is the oldest daughter.
Bizi akraba.
I didn't realize that.
Akraba.
Grandmother is Kalus's oldest sister.
Wow.
Benim büyük annemin annesi birinci hanımıymış, Gülbek Hanım. O hanım doğumdan sonra hastalanıp ölmüş, tekrar evlenmiş. Onun için benim büyük annem öbür anneyi pek herhalde olmamış, sevmemiş. Ondan da 4 tane oğlan olmuştur. Bir tane kız olmuştur. Yalnız kızı sever.
Kız sizin?
Hayır. Büyük annemin
Büyük annemin.
ikinci kardeşi, üvey kardeşi oluyordu. O Fransa'daydı. O gelirdi, Talas'a gelmişti.
Evet. We didn't realize you were connected to Gülbekyan.
Büyük annem oydu.
Yohan mahallede bir tane Türk koymaz.
Ana. Şimdi onu koyma.
Yani sonra ne Urum Kilisesi,
Ana.
ne Kabe abla, o da
Onun şimdi konuşmam lüzum yok.
niye el büyük?
Lüzum yok. Anlamıyorsun, tamam işte. Yüzüm yok.
Well, şey yapabiliriz.
Okay, yeah, it's better, yeah.
Yeah, I think we should probably. You cut it.
All right, thank you.
When I took my wife to Taos for the first time,
Yeah.
7 tane kapısı var. 7 kapı. Bir seferinde kapı.
she said it looked like a ruin.
Yani
Dilapidated. And the reason was this.
Ama
It had been the summer homes of the wealthy Kayserides. But in the exchange of populations, the Greeks were shipped out to Greece, and the Turks were shipped from Greece to Turkey, and some were settled here in Talas. But they weren't wealthy people living in villas. They were, so they tore the buildings apart to make building materials for their superstructures,
Yeah.
and that's why the place looked like it had been bombed
Yeah.
out.
So the exchange of populations sort of, yeah. But originally, I think, Aris, what your mom is saying is that the upper Talas was
Very
mostly
rich,
Armenian and rich.
yeah, mostly, yeah, but it was
Very
very
wealthy
rich. I mean,
Konak.
you can see the homes,
Yeah, yeah.
the big homes. Who needs a big home like that? If you know,
Right.
like the Konak. Konak was a home. You remember the fountain?
Yeah,
Where we,
Right.
in between the steps and everything?
right,
Where we were sitting when they make the wooden steps.
right.
There was a hammam there also.
Right.
They were all belong to the house. You know.
This was one house.
That was one house. Konak was one house.
You know, they've refurbished Konak now. They have actually made it like a Konak, a beautiful, they've done the wood. I mean, they've really done some good things, I think, in Taos.
And there were bedrooms upstairs, like 4 bedrooms, real big bedrooms.
Do you remember going to the hammam? And
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
Zerona, we had the hammam.
Which-
Hamamı hatırlıyoruz. Zerona hamamı yakardı
Evet.
konakta.
sonra 6 saat yatırdı. 6 saat.
Yeah. Güzel zamanlardı, güzel zamanlar. Çok,
Çok güzel.
yeah. We're lucky. We're lucky that we had those days. That we shared.
Kapanma.
Yeah. İşte şimdi biraz okul değil de o kliniği açmaya çalışıyorlar. Biraz güzel bir merkez yapacaklar orada. İnşallah. Ve bu konuştuklarımızı orada gösterebiliriz. Yani hatıra olur.
She's in Czechia.
Yeah. Birkaç tane şimdi still fotoğraf çekeceğim.
Tamam.
Orada nafis beyler vardı. Fevkalade aileydi. Osman ağalar vardı. Fevkalade aile. Nafis beyler vardı.
Nafis Bey. O güzel bir bahçe vardı orada.
Hiç kalmadı.
Hep İstanbul'a
Yok.
ya,
Ne kadar.
vefat ettiler. Evet.
Avukat nafis bey.
Hı hı.
Ben İstanbul'a geleceğim. Ben de çok sever kızım dedi. Yükender kızım dedi. Hasta yatıyor. Oğlanlar evlenmiş çıkmışlar. Hiç kimse bakmıyor. Ben gidiyorum yatakta yemeğimi vermiyorum. Ben geleceğim İstanbul'a göreceğim koyacağım. Bir daha gelmedi, biraz daha geldi. Gittim, ismini söyledik. Kadın güzel bir bağda. Yani milyarder oğlanları var 4 tane. 2 gelini var, o da yeğenlerini aldı. Bakalım. Yani zaten ben kalmadım. Bir kal olanlar var, kal olanlar da bir zaten hiç ölüyor.
Bilmiyorum onları.
Okay, this is my
Oh, good.
business and done very well.
Nancy's the only
And
one
he has a
who's in.
beautiful
I didn't want to
home
disturb her and say
in,
close friends. I
where is
just
it in
took you know,
Pennsylvania
that's now
done?
this Art.
Where's Aris's house?
And Mary Ann.
Outside of
Know
Philadelphia.
him?
It's outside Philadelphia. Anyway, I've been there, and Roxy and Don stopped there just the other day. And it's the most beautiful home. And I find it so wonderful.
I wouldn't have known, but now.
Garabet is a fine man. And, you know, a
Yes,
lot of the
Garabet.
Armenians
Yeah.
lived in fairly humble style in Talas. Well,
Oh, I don't, I've never
Garabet.
seen that since they've grown up.
had a fairly
In
good
fact, I've
life,
never
but
seen them
his
since
sons
they
have
left
done very well.
Again, the
And
flowers.
Aris
That's
has
nice.
bought
She's
and
weeks
is
maybe.
keeping up the most gorgeous garden. and
Well, I'm glad to
beautiful
see this
home
because I was
there
hoping
in
Betty would send me a
Pennsylvania.
copy, and she didn't
And
send
I
me.
think his father must be lying in his
Very
grave
Avery?
gloating
Very
over
Avery?
it because it's wonderful.
Huh.
He raises fancy trees and things like that. And I know that his father was very interested in gardens and so on. And
The two are Dee Keller's, the daughters of
a
the
lot of
Kellers.
those people that
With
worked
Betty
in the
Avery.
clinic and in the school were
And
unusually
let's see if
clever.
Maybe
and,
I'll see if I can
and,
remember who these
You
are.
know, very industrious Armenians.
But wasn't that
And
fun? That's
Aris'
all
family
we've
was
seen.
Some of these
wonderful.
people since I've been
The
visiting.
Bible.
I
And,
still remember them
Roxanne
too.
and
Yes.
his
One
sister
of the Keller
Debbie.
kids.
Talk about any
Aris
of
and
those
his
stories.
brother.
I see the
Cyril
picture in
is
my
a-
eye, just like that.
Armenian kids that, you know, you
Aaron
wouldn't
Whitman
expect them
and
to
Mary
have
Ann.
kept
Those were just
in touch
wonderful,
with each
wonderful
other.
Bible
But
lessons.
Aris
that
has
we
kept
had.
in touch.
Wonderful Bible
And
lessons.
Zarin Earls.
Jean
And,
Bridlow,
what's this lady's?
Oh, are the Keller,
one of her friends
They're
in California,
wonderful.
Oregon.
Yeah.
the Kellers?
She was so excited,
Kellers.
and I was so excited, but
When we were
I
there.
kept ordering more of what I had.
Ah.
Did you know that Bill Griswold had written a beautiful book that was translated into Turkish by one of our students?
What kind of a book?
It's a history book, you know, Bill's forte is history. And the name of the book is Anadolu Dağı,
They babysat our kids
Isyan.
once while we went skiing
the,
on
the
Lulu Dog.
big uprising. And
And that's just the back of Nancy. That day I didn't feel like saying to Nancy, turn around and look at me. She was greeting her guests.
yeah.
And I just took very sort of casual.
Again, this lady who looks so familiar.
Well, we saw them the summer before.
Oh, good, good. And that's a really nice one of the Nelsons, I think, Jean and Paul, and Mary Lou Johnson. Did you
Yeah,
know?
what are Jim and Paul, or Paul and Jean doing
Nelson.
now? It's Jean, his wife.
Jean.
Oh, the Nielsen.
I think they're retired pretty much, but
Are
they
they?
used to run insurance.
Well, do
Well,
I
on their travel and
understand?
travel.
Do I understand
Paul
correctly
Nielsen, Jean
that
Nielsen. Oh.
what's
And there are a lot of photos in
Paul's
that.
sister on that one.
for,
One of them.
this
what's
looks
Paul's-
like Barbara
Paul
Stone
Nelson's
before she
sister
was
Sylvia?
married, when she was still young.
Isn't it Sylvia
Oh,
Meyer?
this is the cool
Sylvia and
story.
Hans Meyer. They're living in Turkey.
They are.
Yeah.
Now, this is
I
the way
I know
remember
they're
when we arrived
retired,
on the
but-
mission field.
They've
They're still
recently
in
been here,
Tarsus.
you know, visiting Army.
Well, I heard that,
Army
but I
is
don't
here.
know. Are they here now?
That was a year ago or so, wasn't it? Yeah.
Were they here in Upland?
They're not
Were they
here, but are they in
No.
the United States?
They came through
No,
to
no.
visit.
I think they've gone back to Turkey because
No,
they
they're
were
back
hoping
in
to make
Turkey.
it for the Talas dinner in Istanbul, or the one in Ankara. There's
Yeah,
everyone.
we saw them when we went to
Yeah.
Turkey.
They're really excited about all this, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh,
Talas
listen,
Mania.
tell me about it.
Well, Sylvia
But that's exciting.
could be a lot of helpful
Yeah.
information, you
Yeah.
know.
If